But thank you for your interest in the Military Academy. It's an awesome opportunity if you were selected to get a great education. I remember one time there was a person who was overlooked. They were rejected. They signed up for the University of Florida, went there, got their all of their courses set up, everything they needed to do, and that next, I think this was on a Friday, that next Monday they were starting their class. And I told them that they had made a mistake in the way they had, the school had made a mistake in the way they had graded everyone, and they reconsidered, and he was accepted. And you want to know what I thought he should do? I told him he should go. It's the once in a lifetime opportunity to go to one of the military academies. I would tell you the same thing. We're looking, the academy itself looks at much of the academics. We do look at that too, but however, we have an interview board with a chairman, and you'll get an opportunity to go and kind of present your case. Most of the people that are on that board have some relationship to the military academies. And so anyway, this fellow decided to go to the military academy. He closed up, took his books, sold them back, closed his lease out, and headed to, I think he was going to West Point. So I would tell you, we're looking for people with character. We do look at academics, but that's the school does most of that. And what we're looking for is people that'll be a part of our United States military, which is a great honor, and to be part of the academies that train you. It's going to be just an awesome education, and you'll have a lifetime's worth of experience that you'll never forget. So anyway, thank you for being a part of it. We're grateful you're here. Our staff and others will explain I guess you would say, explain the mechanics of what it takes to make application to the military academy, and then the interview and so forth will come later, and we look forward to seeing all of you. Thank you so much for participating, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Congressman, for joining us today. Again, I want to welcome everybody to the 2020 Virtual Service Academy Day. My name is Natasha Dubkowski. I am the Service Academy Coordinator. I work on behalf of Congressman Webster in the constituents of the 11th District. My role here in the office is to serve students who are seeking out congressional nominations from Congressman Webster. So I'm going to take just a few minutes to go over the nomination process here in our office and introduce our presenters. So today we are joined by the United States Military Academy, the United States Air Force Academy, the United States Naval Academy, the United States Coast Guard Academy, and the United States Merchant Marine Academy. Charles Cook, the Congressional Coordinator, will be presenting on behalf of the United States Military Academy. Lucas Dahl and William Murray will be participating on behalf of the United States Military Academy as well. We also have Santiago Garcia. He is a 2020 Academy graduate. He will be presenting on behalf of the United States Air Force Academy. Stephen Swift, a Naval Academy Blue and Gold officer, will be presenting on behalf of the United States Naval Academy. Jacob Brown, an admissions officer, will be presenting on behalf of the United States Coast Guard Academy. And David Pope, a Navy veteran, will be presenting on behalf of the United States Merchant Marine Academy. Now, as I stated, I'm going to go over the nomination process here in Congressman Webster's office briefly. What is a congressional nomination? In order to be granted admission into a United States Service Academy, students are required to receive a nomination. Students can obtain a nomination through several avenues. They can either obtain a nomination through their member of Congress, a senator, or the vice president. A nomination is a required component of your application into a service academy. However, it's very important to note that a nomination does not act as or replace your application into an academy. I cannot stress this enough. Again, it is a required component to your application. However, it does not act as or replace your application into the academy which you are seeking admission for. If students seek out a congressional nomination but do not have an open or active application for the academy of their choice, they are not eligible for a nomination interview. In return, they are not eligible for a congressional nomination. I'm going to say it again just so that everybody's clear. A congressional nomination is a required component of your application, but again, a nomination is just a required component, and it does not guarantee your admission into a service academy either. So if you are granted a congressional nomination and you are viewed as eligible by Congressman Webster and our nomination board, that does not necessarily mean that you will be granted admission into the service academy. So please keep that in mind when going through the nomination process. The congressional nomination process or steps that our office would recommend is to first and foremost explore the admissions process of the 5 United States Service Academies. That includes the Military Academy, Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, Coast Guard Academy, and the Merchant Marine Academy. For the Merchant Marine Academy, you do not need a congressional nomination in order to be admitted, whereas with the other 4, a congressional nomination or a nomination is required. Step 2, begin the academy application process. So seek out your academies of choice and begin that application process. Most academies, if not all of them, provide recommended timeframes for when you should begin seeking out a nomination from your congressman's office. Step 3, request a nomination packet from Congressman Daniel Webster. You can call our office, you can visit our website, or you can contact myself directly, and we will help facilitate in ensuring that you receive your nomination packet. Step 4, submit your completed nomination packet before the deadline. Typically, every year, the nomination packet will be due to Congressman Webster's office in early October. This year, it is due on October 9th. So if you are interested in seeking a congressional nomination for the 2025 school year, you need to have a nomination packet completed and sent to our office before October 9th. Step 5, upon completion of your nomination packet, students are granted an interview with Congressman Webster's nomination board. Typically, those interviews are hosted in mid-November. Once you've completed your interview with our nomination board, if you qualify and are eligible, you will be granted a congressional nomination. Again, if you are granted a congressional nomination, that does not guarantee your admission into the service academy. It's very important to note that, because you may be eligible for a congressional nomination, but the service academy may not view you as an eligible candidate. Lastly, I just want to make note of our agenda for tonight's event. We will be having a 15-minute presentation from each academy, all followed by an 8 to 10-minute Q&A session. So, for example, if you're only interested in the Coast Guard Academy and you don't want to participate in the first 3 presentations, feel free to join at a later time. Just make note of the time frame in which we will be doing all of our presentations. For the Q&A session, we ask that students, once the presentation has concluded, we ask that students ask their questions in the chat box for Zoom. Please, at no point will you be unmuted during this call, so you will not be able to speak to our presenters. We ask that you ask your questions in the chat box, and the presenters will respond to you accordingly. If a question is not answered, we will do our best to answer your question following the event. On that note, I would like to introduce the United States Military Academy. Our presenter for the Military Academy, as I stated, is going to be Mr. Charles Cook. We'll go ahead and introduce him and get started with his presentation. Mr. Cook, whenever you are ready, please feel free to join the call.
Okay. Do you want me to use the camera too, Natasha?
Mr. Cook, whatever you're comfortable with, you're welcome to turn your camera on if you would like, but we do have the PowerPoint up for students to see. So, like I said,
okay.
whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that. So I started out my briefing giving you a picture of the main portion of the campus at West Point. I did so because under COVID-19 restrictions, there aren't tours available yet for the academy like they used to be. However, I do understand from updates that I've received from the academy that there are efforts to develop a virtual tour. I'm also waiting to hear whether or not there'll be an SLE program in the late May 21, June 21 time period. Last year's SLE program, because of COVID-19, was canceled as well. But it's a beautiful campus right in the heart of the Hudson Valley. It doesn't get much better than that. So my next slide. Next slide. There we go. I was really amazed at an article that was written by Rocky Mengel, a tax editor at the Kiplinger Report, that came out in July 25th, 2019. I have provided the full article to Natasha, and it's available at your request through Natasha. And Rocky wrote probably the most accurate article on applying to any of the service academies. It wasn't West Point focused, but to any of the service academies that I have seen in my 13 years of doing admissions work for West Point. It really gives you a fast and hard reality focus as to what it takes to apply to any of the service academies and how you must prepare yourself sooner rather than later. Because you want to be sure that you're meeting the academic requirements, the testing requirements, that you are the type of person that we're looking for. And that you are doing everything you can to put your best foot forward. In this article, there's really 20 subtopics to it, but I put what I felt was the 16 most relevant for this meeting. This is just a quick and dirty. One of the things that are required is academic preparation, and I always tell candidates that I work with that you need to take the most challenging academic courses that you can get a B+ or better in. So if that's honors, fine. If that's AP, fine. If that's dual enrolled, fine. If that's IB, fine. But you always want to take the most challenging courses because that's going to prepare you for the rigors of academics at West Point or any of the service academies. Know something about the application process. Each of the service academy reps can speak to the uniqueness of their academies, but the more you know about the application process and the nomination process, the better you can prepare yourself so that when it comes time for you to launch those processes, you're ready. You want to take the SAT and ACT as soon as you're comfortable taking it. I have been told by some students that guidance counselors tell them, oh, you can't take it more than 3 times. These are business entities. They'll take your money as often as you want to send them a check. So take it as much as you can, at least 3 times, because that way, when you submit your scores to West Point, admissions officers like myself or the regional commander can see those scores posted, and our admissions algorithm will tell us which test best qualifies you academically. And with 3 test scores, that's a good measure. So you want to take them at least 3 times. You want to get comfortable with them. They are different, and you're going to do better on one or the other depending upon how your brain is wired. So you got to find that out. You want to be a leader. You want to be participating in varsity sports. Ideally, you want to be a team captain of at least one of those sports. You want to be a club officer and have a leadership position. And I don't mean in the classical sense, secretary, treasurer, vice president, president, there are other leadership positions. You can be a program chairperson, an event chairperson, where you're responsible for doing the coordination of other subordinate volunteers in that project and what you did and how you did it. I talk about varsity sports team when 86% of every entering class, essentially everybody coming from high school, has a varsity letter in at least one sport, and that's your competition. And 74% of them have been the team captain of that sport. That's your competition. So you need to be an athlete, physically fit, and you can get that through your sports team participation. You've got to be able to pass the 6-event CFA. So that's to assess your physical agility. Natasha already talked about a nomination. There are also service-connected nominations, presidential for career military folks and retired, VA service-connected, junior ROTC, and active component, reserve component, National Guard. So if you're eligible for any of those service-connected nomination categories, you need to apply for them, because I usually tell folks he or she with the most nominations usually wins in some category. You also need to be medically fit. Be prepared with documentation and have that documentation for any inpatient, emergency room, or ambulatory surgery admission or treatment that you've had since your birth, not your birth, but since your birth, so that you don't have to wait for that process, because you have to declare those admissions on the DOBMERB exam, but nowhere on that exam does it tell you that you need to do this documentation, and you can be in remedial status by not having that documentation ready. And you don't need to fear the med waiver process. I had 2 medical waivers, one for each of my shoulders because I played ice hockey and I had 2 AC dislocations, and one for my knee because I wrenched my knee on a cross-country run. And a significant percentage of each entering class has a medical waiver for something, so don't fear the process. And the next most important thing is know and work with your local admissions officer. They are your subject matter experts. They can best advise, guide, and lead you through this process. And the better they know you, the better they get to know you, and you know them. And that comes into play because they also have to complete an interview on you. And if they know you well, then they can make valid comments on the narrative of the candidate interview form. Okay, next slide. So here is an example of our academic majors. 2 new majors were just recently added, data science and space science. For those of you who aren't aware, the president signed the Space Force Act to start the Space Force, which is currently under the command guidance of the United States Air Force, but at some future point, it will be broken off into its own service, just like the Army, Navy, and Air Force. But this is an example of the undergraduate degrees that you can get while at West Point. If you're interested in pre-med, life sciences is your preferred choice. Next. So how are candidates assessed? Each candidate has a score that is associated with them. And for West Point, the academics represent 60% of that whole candidate score, leadership 30%, and the candidate fitness 10%. So for individuals coming out of high school, the predominance of that 60% is weighted towards the results of your standardized tests. We look at your GPA, we look at your class standing, but that GPA and that class standing works only for that high school. If you were in a different high school on the other side of the district, that could be totally different. So what levels the playing field is the results of what you can produce on the standardized tests, either the SAT or ACT, and we super score. So this works in your benefit so that if you take the SAT 4 or 5 times, in your portal where you see those scores, it's going to show for math and verbal the highest score you received, regardless which test it occurred in. And the same applies for the ACT. Leadership. So you get points for your extracurricular activities, your athletic participation, your school official evaluations. One of the most overlooked programs still in existence today is the American Legion Boys State and American Legion Auxiliary Girls State. Why? I don't know, but I recommend that males and females find out through your local American Legion and American Legion Auxiliary rep the application process for the programs and try and get accepted into those programs. School official evaluations, you're going to have 4 of them: math, English, and physical science, preferably physics and chemistry, and then PE. And the individual who does the PE evaluation must be a physical education instructor, in other words, have a degree in PE, or it can be the individual that administers the candidate fitness assessment. And there's any number of individuals that can administer the CFA. And there are, under the candidate fitness assessment, are the 6 events. Women have an opportunity to either do pull-ups or a flexed arm hang. Know which one works best for you. Don't go into the CFA and try and do pull-ups, can't do one, and now you have to switch to the flexed arm hang, because you won't have the strength to do as well as you would have had you just stuck with the flexed arm hang. And the pull-ups and the push-ups must be videotaped. And there are special instructions in the information guidance for the CFA that tells you how to do the videotape and how to submit it. Next slide. Okay, now Natasha talked about the congressional side, and I briefly talked about the service-connected side. So here's a little bit more detail as to who and how those apply to candidates. Always apply for the nomination, the most nominations of which you are qualified for. But the important distinction that I point out on this slide is under the service-connected. None of the service-connected nominations roll over to a qualified alternate list. So if you have a presidential nomination and you did not apply for a congressional nomination and you didn't get in under the presidential nomination, you're done. I want everybody to understand that. Whereas the congressional, Congressman Webster's district, the 2 U.S. senators, and the vice presidential, if you are nominated by them, but you don't get your offer, your initial offer from that district, you roll over to the qualified alternate list and you can be considered for an offer off the qualified alternate list. And depending upon the numbers, the average is about 300 applicants get offers off the qualified alternate list each year. So just be aware of that. Know your processes. Next slide. Know your deadlines. This is a very important slide. So your application is closed, locked, loaded. You can't do anything, make any changes, or submit anything to it after the 31st of January. The only thing that can happen is your DOBMERB. If you are applying for a waiver, you have until the 15th of April for that waiver to be resolved, yes or no. And if it isn't done by the 15th of April, you're done. This is why if you have any of those admissions, inpatient, emergency room, or ambulatory surgery admissions, that's why it's so important that you have those medical records up front to present to the examining physician at the time you have your DOBMERB exam, so that you don't lose time and get lost in the April 15th deadline. Be proactive. Don't be afraid to contact your admissions officers like myself, Colonel Murray, preferably because Captain Dahl is absolutely overwhelmed. He manages 11 states and 5,000 to 7,000 applications. So go through the local folks first. We're very experienced, well qualified, and well trained, and there's very little that we can't help you with. So I think I'm on time, on target, Natasha. So if anybody has any questions, put them on the chat board.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. We really appreciate you taking the time to participate in our virtual event this evening. As Mr. Cook said, if you have any questions concerning the military academy or their admissions process, we'll give students just a few minutes to ask those questions in the chat box. If you're having a hard time finding the chat box, it's located at the top of your screen to the far right-hand side. If you hover over more and go down to chat, you can chat in there. Mr. Cook, Lieutenant Dahl, and Colonel Murray, I will unmute you as questions come in. So just be mindful of the fact that you are unmuted. So people can hear you. So just keep that in mind, and we'll keep you unmuted as questions roll in, okay?
Okay, we have a question. I won't mention your name or anything, but would ADD make me highly unlikely applicant? I have an answer for that, but I'm actually going to defer to Captain Dahl to have him answer that, because it is a sensitive issue. So Lucas?
Okay, so I can only speak to situations I've seen. Every person's situation is different, specifically with medical. However, oftentimes people who have ADD, ADHD, or some sort of learning disability will require a waiver. Typically, the difference maker on the waiver for them is whether they've received accommodations on their standardized tests and throughout school. Because what the medical providers need to see is that the candidate is able to perform at a high level without those accommodations that they may have received in high school due to that ADD, ADHD, those sorts of things.
Let me toss in my 2 cents worth. I've worked with another number of candidates who carried an ADD diagnosis or ADHD diagnosis throughout their early high school years, had never been effectively diagnosed by a clinical practitioner. So we worked a couple things. If you have academic accommodations, you must be away from academic accommodations for the 12 prior months. If you're on medication, you have to have been off that medication for the 12 prior months. And your primary care physician or clinical professional treating you can provide documentation to the DOBMERB folks stating that you've been off that medication for 12 months. And your school principal can provide a letter also stating that you've been off academic accommodations for the prior 12 months. That has been successful in the past. Okay, we have another question. Can you play football and go to the academy and still pick a major too? Oh, you're going to pick a major. That's not in question. Can you play football? Yes, you can play football. If you're good enough for the Army varsity team, you can play there. If you're a lightweight, we have sprint football, or we used to call it sprint football. It's 172 pounders. So that's a level of football that you can play. Or there's fall intramurals, and each cadet company will field a football team, so you can play football that way too. So yes, if football is your passion, you can still play it, and yes, you'll still pick a major and graduate with it. My school does not have things like captains on sport teams. Does that harm my potential? Lucas?
It absolutely does not. We look at the whole candidate concept, not just whether you're a leader on your sports teams, but we're going to look at your other clubs and that sort of thing as well. I can speak from my own experience. I was never a captain on a sports team prior to coming here. I was not even a varsity athlete, and I was still able to get accepted. So that's not going to hurt you. You just might want to look at some other leadership opportunities and other extracurriculars that you're participating in. The other option too is that a lot of times we will talk to coaches and get their input. So maybe a school has a policy that they won't assign captains, but if your coach reaches out and says, "Hey, if we assigned captains, this person would be our captain. I'll generally accept that as you being the captain for that team. So, but obviously that requires the coach to reach out.
Okay, we have another question. Natalie, let me know if we're pushing the button here. So also, can you go Delta and attend West Point? I think your question is, if you go to West Point, can you then go into Delta Force? Two separate things. Yes, you can go graduate, branch to infantry, and then the Delta Force is a separate qualifying test, just like Special Forces is a separate qualifying test. Rangers is a separate qualifying test, and you can take those. You can take the Special Forces and the pre-ranger course during your second semester of your senior year at West Point, and but Delta, you have to do that when you're actually on active duty. Last question. I was accepted as a delegate to Boise State this year, but it was canceled due to COVID. Do I get leadership points for being accepted? Yes, Khalid. As a matter of fact, you can scan your acceptance letter to Boise State and send it to myself or to Captain Dahl, and that documentation suffices. And Captain Dahl can add your whole candidate score points for Boise State. Natasha, how we doing?
Gentlemen, you have about 5 more minutes to answer questions, so feel free to address any of the questions that have been asked.
Okay, how does Civil Air Patrol affect me? Lucas?
Yes, so Civil Air Patrol, we're going to generally look at that kind of equivalent level as junior ROTC. So as you're potentially reaching higher leadership levels within Civil Air Patrol, we're going to consider that as part of your the leadership when we look at that as on your file.
Hello.
Yes, Colonel Murray, go ahead.
No, I was trying to answer my phone here. My comment on the Civil Air Patrol was, I think it helped me in my application process back in the 65 years ago.
Colonel Murray, did they have airplanes back then?
Yes. And I'm still flying one that my airplane is a 1947 Ercoupe. But at any rate, Civil Air Patrol is it depends upon the unit that you were in and how well you did in that. That can affect your leadership evaluation. It also gives you the advantage of learning something. If you had no connection with the military at all, you learn basically to march in that and how to, if you go on the encampments, how to keep your room neat. And so I think it helped me a lot. And like I say, that was 65 years ago.
Wow.
I went as a Civil Air Patrol exchange cadet, also went to Sweden in 1954.
Wow. Okay. Lucas, I think this is going to be for you. I was accepted as a candidate and sent the letter, and it says that I have 60 days to complete my application. So is it due in January or 60 days after I received my letter?
So when we send those initial letters out after we open the what we call the second step kit or the full application for candidates, we send those letters out to encourage them to work on the application early. So if after 60 days after the application has been opened, if you have made no progress on your file, we'll typically close it. Now, if you decide later on, hey, I'm actually going to get to work on this, you can send us an email and reach out to us, and we will reopen your file. But the actual application deadline, the final deadline, is January 31st. Just continue progress on your file, and it's not going to get closed on you.
Okay, what school year does the application process start? It starts January 15th of your junior year, and I encourage every candidate who is considering applying to West Point or any of the other 4 service academies, find out when the application is opened at those other service academies as well, and start your application process then. Don't waste time. Can someone who is interested in graphic arts still go to West Point? Well, we don't have a graphics art undergraduate program, but Lucas?
Yeah, so I'll address that because I'm definitely a liberal arts favored kind of person too. And when I came to West Point, I dreaded all of my math and science and STEM classes, but I majored in a major that we have here called art, philosophy, and literature. So as Charles said, it's not an actual graphic arts major, but you can get some opportunities between the clubs that we have here at West Point and some of the different liberal arts majors to continue to do things in graphic arts if you're interested in that. Also, I would like to highlight, we just started a new functional area that if you decide to stay in is a new marketing functional area. And that marketing functional area is really looking for people that may have business backgrounds or graphic arts and art sort of backgrounds to help, because they're looking for people that can help their marketing program for the whole Army as well as West Point.
Okay. Is leadership participation with a religious group or student organization with a volunteer organization of equal weight to school leadership? At many small schools, leadership opportunities are not as plentiful. Yes, 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 yes.
Mr. Cook, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We will need to conclude the question and answer portion for West Point right now. Please feel free if Captain Dole, Mr. Cook, or Mr. Murray, if you would like to answer any remaining questions in the chat box, please feel free to do so. For those students whose questions were not answered, we will be recording them and we will do our best to get them answered on the back end after the event is over. I want to thank Mr. Cook and Mr. Dahl and Mr. Murray for participating in tonight's event. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be available to students. We're going to go ahead and mute the three of you and move on to the United States Naval Academy. We're going to be joined by Stephen Swift. He is the Naval Academy Blue and Gold Officer for this area. So once again, you guys will be muted. Thank you so much for your participation. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And Mr. Swift, I will be unmuting you, so you have the floor.
All righty, that's great. Well, I appreciate you having the opportunity to talk here for the 11th District students. My name is Captain Swift. I'm the Area Coordinator, Blue and Gold Officer for the Greater Tampa Bay area, which actually goes up into the 11th District. I also have Mr. Brian Donovan, Blue and Gold Officer, and he's an educator there at Lecanto High School. And also on call is Ensign Sophie Lekis, class of 2020. So she just graduated this past May, and she is going subs here shortly, as you know, once she gets to the class that's next class is coming up. So I was class 87. I went subs as well. So she's following me in the footsteps there. And then I switched over to intelligence a little before 9/11 and did my training there in and went intelligence for post 9/11 type of stuff. So going on to the slides here. Next slide, please. I did want to mention that we have virtual admissions briefs that are going on, usually 2 per day right now going on. So obviously folks can't actually go onto the academy right now, but this is what it kind of looks like. Pretty much you can see that everything is there that you would possibly need, which is a real good thing during COVID, because people, the midshipmen, are not allowed out in town right now because obviously we're trying to keep everybody in their own little bubble. So you pretty much got everything you need right there on campus. Next slide, please. And this is probably one of the most important slides if you're making your choices about where to go to school and what's going to affect you for the next 20 or 40 years of your life. These are some of the nice things to have looking at colleges. That top one there, I know our Dean of Admissions and our Dean of Academics very, very happy with, our top public college, #4 STEM college in the U.S. Some of you might care about being one of the highest paid mid-career folks out there, and we're very high up on later on graduates as well, even once you've gotten out of the military. So some of the very nice things there as far as accolades for the school. Obviously, a very high-end engineering program. What's kind of funny is that we're also ranked very high in liberal arts as well, because you are required to take English and history classes, and we rank pretty highly in those as well. Next slide, please. Just to show that we're a fairly diverse population with nearly 30% women at the Academy. Next slide, please. And these are our 25 majors. Interesting, I kind of mentioned the liberal arts piece there. If you look over on the right-hand side, you can see we actually, even though we're focused on engineering, and you can see all that engineering and science, the STEM stuff there, we do have a Chinese and Arabic major as well there on the bottom right. And next slide, or next build. And you can see we also have a very, prominent minors in all the languages, because it is important to be able to speak the language of not only your foes, but also your friends that you work with in coalition type of activities. Next slide, please. So this is very unique to all the academies, but especially the Naval Academy, very small class size. You're not going to see, a computer science class or a basic English or math class with 100 people in class. It's going to be very, very small. I mean, I think the largest class I ever had was 25 people in a class, and for a freshman basic class, plebe class. But a lot of times it'll actually be, 10 people in a class, 8 people in a class. Our instructors they're dedicated to do instruction. They're not there to do research and other things. So it's a great classroom experience. And also you can see at the very bottom there, you're going to have a lot of civilian instructors. A lot of people think you're going to go to the Naval Academy and you're going to see only military instructors, but you're going to have a lot of civilian instructors there as well. Next slide, please. Lots of varsity sports, one of the top sports. I think actually we may be close to #1 with the other academies now that Stanford has backed off their sports programs a little bit. But obviously, if you play a sport, Division I in most cases, come to the academies. Next slide, please. And if you're not a varsity athlete, club sports there, you can see there on the right in their dress uniforms with their tri-bikes there. That looks like it's the Triad, which is a co-ed team. But these are all the different club sports that you be involved with. Next slide, please. And if you're not up to a club sport, you still do things at the similar to what Charles spoke about, at the battalion or a company level. You're going to do some sort of sport activity. Everybody gets the opportunity to do that. So you have lots of choices there. Next slide. And if you're not sports related and you don't want to participate in sports, you still may do that as part of your required activities, but lots of extracurricular activities. Like for me, I was in drum and bugle corps, did a couple others, music things, but lots of different things to do here. And next slide. Even more religious, military, professional, academic type things. Next slide. So everybody gets paid to go to the Naval Academy. It's kind of weird. You think, wait, not only is it a scholarship, but you actually make some money. Granted, it's not very much. Maybe as a freshman or as a plebe, you might get about $100 a year, maybe $200 as a sophomore, and then that'll build. So it depends how much money you've spent along the way for books and things like that. So I like to say that, typically the engineers might have to pay a little bit more because their books are a little bit more expensive. So they get maybe a little bit less money by the time they become a senior. But next slide, please. When you graduate, everybody's going to graduate with a Bachelor of Science, which you may think is kind of strange. If you're an English major or history major or economics, you're still going to have a Bachelor of Science because you had enough math and science and engineering classes to get that Bachelor of Science. And then you're a commissioned officer in the United States Navy or Marine Corps. As you'll notice, there is no Marine Corps Academy because the Marine Corps is part of the Naval Service. They don't always like that to hear that, but they are part of the Naval Service, and approximately 28% of our graduates every year end up going into the Marine Corps with a 5-year commitment. Next slide, please. So basically there's 5 basic things you're going to do when you come out of the academy. Surface warfare being one, obviously going onto ships. Next slide, please. Submarine warfare. So I did this for 7 years, and that's what Sophie's going to do here shortly once she leaves admissions. Next slide. Aviation. Obviously, you can fly fixed wing with the jets. helo or propeller are your three choices there. You can fly front seat or back seat as a naval flight officer. Unfortunately, we can't talk about Top Gun 2 yet because it got delayed, I guess, due to COVID. So I guess next summer we'll have to see Top Gun 2, because Top Gun 1, when that came out, was one of the greatest recruiting films of all time for the Naval Academy. Next slide, please. And of course, special warfare, including EOD and the SEALs, if you're hardcore and really like to swim and run and swim some more and run some more. Next slide. And of course, the Marine Corps, which we mentioned, about 28% every year, give or take a couple percent in going to the Marine Corps. Next slide. And this is actually the breakdown. So you can see the major 5 things there kind of on the left-hand side. Those are broken out a little bit with the different things. 92% of all people, all the graduates are going to get their first choice. And then about 8% will kind of, they'll maybe suggest a different choice field for you. And then actually the right-hand side, just notice pretty low numbers there, but those are more for restricted lines. So that might, like, for example, I had a classmate who had bad knees. So instead of, and he was a gymnast, but he had bad knees, so he couldn't go on anything on the left side. So he had to go intelligence. And those are just some of the things that you do there for restricted line folks. Next slide, please. So for any juniors and below, you should be looking at this Naval Academy Summer Seminar. Of course, it was canceled this year due to COVID, or actually it went virtual. But this is what starts your application program as a junior, and you can apply usually starting just after the first of the year. So that's in about 4 months for the juniors, and then you have a 6-day program there in the summer at the academy. Hopefully, we won't have COVID issues next summer, and you're able to do that. So that's a great opportunity. If you're not sure the academy is for you, and of course, all the other academies have some sort of summer program there as well. Next slide. And just basic eligibility for everybody. Next slide. And there's a little bit about how to, to apply. We'll go through the application process real quick here. Next slide, please. These are all the requirements, pretty similar to all the academies. Charles went through kind of some of the things you need to do for the application. We're slightly different, as all the academies are, but they're pretty close to the same on the basics. Next slide, please. So physical qualification, same effect. You can take the same test for West Point and for Naval Academy and for Air Force Academy. Next slide, please. Medical, obviously important. We need to have everybody physically fit. Probably the best thing I heard was one of the medical officers said, I'm basically making a warranty for this student for the next 9 years, 4 years at the academy, and then at least 5 years into their service. Next slide, please. Obviously, nominations, we kind of covered that pretty heavily here. Next slide, please. Kind of a little bit of the candidate cycle, very similar to what Charles talked about. Application deadline there, January 31st. We'll see how things go with COVID this year. Obviously, a lot of the nominations seem to be delayed a little bit, or at least giving you a little bit more lead time on deadlines. So that's good. Next slide. Next slide. This is just a build, keep building. So those are basically the 3 things you need. You missions board, a physical board, a medical board, and then of course you have to have the nomination to compete for an appointment. Next slide, please. Next slide. And then there is a prep school in case you're the Naval Academy or for the other academies, they really like you, but they think you might struggle initially. They might send you to a prep school there, which is ours is up in Newport, Rhode Island, or you can possibly go to one of the foundation schools. It is not a separate application. You do not need to do anything different. Just when your Blue and Gold officer does your interview and he or she asks you, do you want to go to a prep school? If not selected, make sure you answer the word yes at that point. Next slide, please. This is probably the most important slide of all of them, so we'll hold here for a second. But people say, okay, what do I need to do to get into the academy? Okay, obviously you need to fill out all the application, do everything that you're supposed to do, but how do you be competitive for the academy? Well, make sure you take all the math classes possible. Taking AP classes when you're your junior, senior year, taking the high-end classes. So you want to be in the highest class rank as possible. I know that says 20% there, but sometimes 10% is even better. Obviously, the top in your class is even the best, if possible. But top 10% is usually a good thumb rule in our area. Take your SAT, ACTs early. I know we've had challenges with COVID and all that kind of stuff, but take them early, take them often. A lot of people do a lot better the second time around. You know, just getting the book and drilling. If you don't have the time or the money to take the class, at least get the book and practice those. Just practice the questions. Just getting used to the question flow and doing it over and over again, and like not getting stuck on one question for 20 minutes and learning to just move on and don't worry about that one question is helpful to get the highest class rank, or highest SAT and ACTs possible. Obviously, we mentioned AP and honors classes, IB courses there as well. Also, dual enrollment. We get that question a lot of it. So a lot of times you can take AP classes or dual enrollment classes if you've got that opportunity. There's really no preference there. Just do well in them. And then be well-rounded. That's, a lot of that top stuff is probably important for any top engineering school, but then you want to be well-rounded. Demonstrated leadership potential, extracurricular activities to show leadership. Outside of school, that might be leadership. I saw the one question about religious. Yes, the religious leadership is very good as well. So next slide, please. So reasons to go Navy. These are the reasons. We have a little bit less snow than those other academies, so that's kind of nice. Next slide, please. And these are just some of the information. I know that Natasha said she would be sending out our information afterwards. So if you have any questions about anything about Naval Academy related in Florida 11 District, please send me an email. And next slide, I think, is the last slide. And with that, I think we can go into the question and answer period. And just because I had to do all the talking here, I'm going to let Ensign Sophie Lekis be the lead for taking those questions initially, and then she can deflect over to Brian Donahue or myself if needed for some backup on the questions.
Thank you, Captain Swift. I will go ahead and unmute Ms. Lekis and Mr. Donovan. Just give me one moment. Students, please feel free to begin asking questions. Remember, we're asking questions in the chat box.
Hello, my name is Ensign Sophie Lekis, and thank you, sir, for the introduction. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, originally. Graduated this past May, and I service-selected submarines. While at the academy, I was an aerospace engineering major, and I was on the boxing team all 4 years. I'm also going to deter my submarine school for 2 years. I'm going to the UK to get a Master's of Science. And yeah, I'll take any questions. I have clubfoot. Will that affect anything at all? For any medical questions, I think each case is very different and specific to the person, so you have to go through the medical process and obtain a waiver. If I'm accepted to USNA, I'll want to go Marines, but my dream is to be a pilot. Is the slide you showed breaking down class of 2020 assignments typical for most classes? 78 Marine pilots. Yes, I would say the breakdown is pretty similar. My class is a little smaller than the average, but the percentages usually remain the same. We usually have several Marine pilots slots. Do the co-ed rifle and pistol options mean you practice shooting and learn about the weapons? Yes, those are teams that you can be on. One of them is varsity and another is club. I can't remember which is which. But that means you go to the range every day, and that's what you do during sports period from 4 to 6. Does playing an instrument count as a good extracurricular? Absolutely. I played violin and oboe in high school, and that's where I got a lot of my leadership by being a drum major in band and being a section leader in orchestra. So, as long as you show that you're committed to that and you have leadership in those activities, that will help your application.
Up on that one as well. I played French horn in high school, and was also the drum major. So, I'd say if you're playing an instrument and you can be the band leader in some way, shape, or form, that shows as a real good leadership. I was also a little weak on sports initially, and but having that extra leadership stuff from whatever standpoint, and then having obviously the good grades, shows that you're a well-rounded person. I certainly wasn't a bad athlete. I just I just hadn't chosen to do too much in varsity sports at the time. Back over to you, Sophie.
I have another question. Can you only play one sport? Generally, yes. You can only play one sport because all sports practice at the same time during sports period. However, if you do intramurals, the sports will change every semester, so then you can kind of change it up year to year. How many people apply for a billet to BUDS training from the academy? How many get accepted? It's a very good question. I would say on I-Day, so that's the first day of plebe summer, maybe 200 to 300 people will be interested in SEALs. But that gets narrowed down pretty quickly. They go through very rigorous physical training. Your junior year, you do, I think it's like a 26 to 28 hour physical evolution where they test you. You can't sleep. You hardly get to eat anything. So I think in the final round of selections, we had 30 people applying for 20 spots. And that's how many people can go to BUDS. How useful would being a tri-sport athlete be? That'd be very good. Just showing that you're involved in sports is an important part of the application.
Yeah, and just going back to that BUDS question real quick, I think it was 30 or 30 total this past year, which I know is much increased. You know, when I graduated a long time ago, it was only 16 people were accepted. But I also know that some people might, you know, if you didn't get into BUDS right out of the academy and go SEAL that way, you might be able to, you know, go SWO, surface warfare officer, for a year or two and then redesignate later on. I know I had one of my classmates that did that. And he ended up becoming a 2-star admiral. So it certainly didn't hurt him switching over to SEALs a little bit later on in the game.
All right. We'll give everybody a few more minutes to ask questions. I did notice that there was a question asked earlier that was directed to all academies. It was asked if an Eagle Scout or being a member of Eagle Scout would be helpful in, when applying to a service academy. Can either of you maybe address that question?
I think being an Eagle Scout definitely helps your application because it shows that you had great commitment to Boy Scouts program for a long period of time, that you completed your project. So that definitely helps. Does USNA allow me to pursue a medical degree, for instance, becoming a doctor? We do not have a pre-med program, but you can become a Navy doctor. The slots are extremely competitive. I forget how many doctors we had in my class, but I would guess it was around 9. And they take the MCAT, so most people who do get medical corps are chemistry majors at Navy.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, they allow, legally there's allowed up to 20 a year. However, typically it's between about 9 to 15 a year might actually get selected. And yeah, there's one professor that basically creates a pre-med program for them. And so even though it's not officially a major, it kind of is. And I think we've never had anybody turn down for med school coming out of the Naval Academy, from what I understand.
If you enlist first, would that help my chances? Sir, could you answer that one?
I would say it, in general, if you are like a college-driven person or you're a college type of material, you should probably go to college first and go that way. Even if you don't get into the Naval Academy, you can go. There's other ways to become an officer. You know, obviously you can go ROTC, which everybody should be applying for, as well as the academies. And then you can also go officer candidate school later on. So if you enlist, there's always just a chance that something might not, work out. I mean, I've known many fine officers that were enlisted, so it certainly does work out. But I would just say if you're college material, you should probably go to college right out of high school as opposed to enlisting first. Now, if you hate school and all that, and you need a different choice in life. I mean, I remember one of my chiefs on board the sub. He went and played ball at Oregon State for 2 years, and he blew out his shoulder, and so he enlisted, and he ended up becoming an officer and a captain later on in life. So all was good. So it just depends on the person.
Okay, well, if
All right, Sophie, when you headed out to down to Nuclear Power School?
Well, I'm leaving for grad school in next Tuesday, and then
Hey,
going to
grad
nuclear
school.
power school in 2 years.
All right, that's right. I'm sorry, you said that in UK. So that means she's really smart because she got accepted to go to UK and go to grad school first before she went into the nuclear power school. So you're talking to a very smart person. What was your class rank?
76, I think.
76, so top 100 out of one of the top engineering schools in a tough major with aero major. So very nice, Sophie. Good job.
Thank you.
Very
Keep doing good
impressive.
stuff.
Well, if nobody has any other questions, we will go ahead and wrap up the presentation from the Naval Academy. Thank you so much, Captain Swift, Ms. Leakus, and Mr. Donovan for participating tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time to join our students. Any questions that went unanswered will be addressed following the meeting. I'll go ahead and turn it over to the United States Air Force Academy. We are joined today by Santiago Garcia. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Mr. Garcia, and I'll pull up your slides and we can go ahead and begin your presentation. Just give me one moment.
Can you hear me, ma'am? Just testing that you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm Lieutenant Garcia here, admissions officer for the United States Air Force Academy. Okay. This is not my slide. You can go ahead, ma'am. Yep. Perfect. Slide, please. So I'm not sure what those green lines are on the screen there. I don't know where those came from. Anyway, all right, so basically Air Force Academy, you've heard the Naval Academy, you've heard West Point. It's the same thing, pretty much. The whole nomination process is gonna look the same. The application is gonna be the same. You wanna have those high test scores, high GPA, be involved athletically, you know, stay out of trouble, do the right things. The biggest difference with the Air Force Academy with regards to the curriculum is the emphasis we place on airmanship. Every cadet, when they go to the Air Force Academy, is required to have at least one flight in a glider. Those are for people who have no interest in flying at all. But the biggest things are people who go to the Air Force Academy, we want them to be motivated to become pilots and to have an aviation and aerospace mindset. So, yep, here it is. Educate, train, and inspire men and women to become officers of character, motivated to lead the United States Air and Space Force in service to our nation. And that's the biggest thing we highlight there is everything from day one, when you're a dually going through freshman year, you'll have experience flying in a glider. So those are planes without any engines, all the way through when you get to be a senior, you're flying in what's the equivalent of a Cessna, and you get go through about a 10-hour syllabus there in order to solo. Yeah, you can go ahead and slide, please. Yep, so whole person development, just like West Point and Annapolis here, we value leadership and character above everything. Slide, please. So this is actually a picture of one of my buddies, Daniel Wu. He was an aeronautical engineering major here, and I believe he's working on a prototype for a supersonic aircraft, testing it in one of the wind tunnels that we have there. But Daniel is also preparing to go to pilot training right now. He's stationed over at Eglin. Slide, please. Again, just like the other service academies, Air Force is a top academic school. As you can see, we have many single and top 10 rankings for all of our engineering and STEM courses. Slide, please. Yep, we have a wide variety of majors, everything from biology, chemistry to area studies, geospatial sciences. Personally, I majored in behavioral science with a concentration in human factors. So a lot of what I've learned at the Air Force Academy academically is preparing me to become a pilot. A little about myself, I'm actually getting ready to go to pilot training here in a little over a month. So very excited and looking forward to that. A slide, please. Yep, these are our athletic fields at the bottom: baseball, lacrosse. We have indoor football, indoor tennis, 3 different gyms, over 20 tennis courts. And to the north of that is, sorry, at the top of the picture here, it's actually south geographic is the cadet area. You can see the chapel, our dining hall, and both dormitories. Slide, please. So just like West Point and Annapolis, we have intercollegiate sports teams, club sports teams, and intramurals. All cadets, if they don't have an excuse, are required to participate in some sort of sport after academics concludes for the day. I was recruited to play tennis for the Air Force Academy. So every day my schedule was typically wake up around 6:30. Your first class is going to start at 7:30. I'm in class from 7:30 to 11:30. Then everybody gets together and we march to lunch. And then usually around 1 o'clock, I'm at the tennis court warming up, and I practice until about 5:30 or 6 p.m. Get released, head back up to dinner. Around 8 o'clock, I'm starting homework, and that usually takes about 2 hours. Rinse, wash, repeat type of thing. But for those who are not intercollegiate athletes, non-recruited, essentially they might start class a little bit later depending on scheduling and availability, but they'll have about an hour of intramural basketball, intramural cross country, club tennis, club rugby, that sort of thing. But the academy will mandate that you're involved in something after class. Slide, please. This is just a picture for a few of our clubs in intramural sports. Slide. Yep, you can click that one. Slide. Okay, 2 of the biggest, the only physical fitness tests that we have when we're cadets are the PFT and AFT. So physical fitness test is it's a pull-ups followed by a long jump into sit-ups, push-ups, and then a 600-yard sprint. So these are all just timed events essentially, and it takes about 15 minutes to get through all of the events, but it's a pretty high physical fitness standard. I would say the average person walking around the street would not be able to pass it. You definitely have to be in solid physical fitness to do this. Aerobic fitness is just your 1.5 mile run. Again, the standards are pretty high. That's about a 7:30 in order to max this one. So usually the people that do that are from our cross country and track program. Next slide, please. BCT. So when you show up on day 0, I day, and processing day, again, just like West Point, Annapolis, you got to go through basic training. You got to get a good understanding of what it takes to be a cadet at the Air Force Academy, and running through the 7 basic responses. That's about 3 weeks of just learning how to do facing turns, marching, standing at attention, having good military discipline, learning how to eat at attention, using your diaphragm to yell and respond. After that, you go into what's called the second beast, and you march down to Jack's Valley with your class, and you do 10 days, give or take a few, and obstacle courses, a lot of physical challenges, team building, expeditionary and survival, evasion skills, that sort of thing. And you pack it up, head back up to the hill, and you've successfully completed basic cadet training. But this is something, if you find out you get in to the academy, you really look forward to this and start mentally preparing for, prolonged sleep deprivation, shouting all the time, high intensity, putting a lot of miles in, running a lot, just getting ready, being ready to push yourself to the next level. Slide, please. Slide, please. Again, the academy experience, whatever academy you decide to go to, you're going to get an excellent leadership and character development experience and a top-tier academic education. The biggest thing that we highlight at the Air Force Academy that's different from the other ones is our focus on STEM, technology, and aerospace. We're the only branch of service, that has F-22 Raptor and the B-2. That's unmatched air superiority from any category you look at it. Additionally, we're the only service academy to commission cadets directly into the Space Force. This is a brand new emerging branch of our service, and we have a bunch of funding that's going into amplifying the Air Force Academy experience for those cadets who want to go into the Space Force. Slide, please. And this is our honor oath. So when we become cadets on in-processing day, we state this oath: we will not lie, steal, or cheat, nor tolerate among us anyone who does. This is just to ensure that from day one, we're all on the same page in terms of character, and we agree to obey these basic principles so that we can achieve the mission of learning how to become a solid officer. Okay, slide, please. Yep, this is just our wing organization. So when you become a cadet, you're assigned to a squadron. So at the bottom here, you can see we have about 40 of these patches. Each one of those patch represents a squadron. So you're assigned to one of those as a cadet, and those are about 100 cadets. And they're the people that you do everything with. You live next to them. You wake up in the morning and you form up with them. You sit next to them at lunch. And ultimately, they're the ones who you sit next to when you graduate and throw your hat in the air. There's 10 squadrons in each group, 4 different groups, and together that makes the cadet wing. 4,000, give or take, total. Slide, please. Yep, and then in addition to sports, that's one of the things I mentioned earlier, is if you have an excuse, you don't have to participate in afternoon intramurals. So we have a multitude of clubs, everything from the Air Force Academy Wings of Blue parachute team, where in your mornings and afternoons you go and learn how to jump out of planes in a competitive nature. So doing formations, high altitude, low opening jumps, that sort of thing. We have triathlon team, way of life committee, men's and women's boxing, chess club. And the best thing about the Air Force Academy, if you're into clubs, that sort of thing, is if you don't see a club on your list to join, there's just a little bit of paperwork to go through and you can make your own club. This is not hard to do. Slide, please. All right, home away from home. Every cadet is assigned a sponsor family when they get there. So dually year, or freshman year as we call it, can be very difficult. Thankfully, we have this sponsor program where if you're allowed to leave, you haven't gotten in trouble on that weekend, you can go visit this family and they'll cook a nice warm meal for you, offer you a place to stay for the weekend, allow you to relax, watch TV, that sort of thing. And generally it's retired military or active duty who have a desire to continue supporting the academy and giving back in that regard. Bottom line with the Air Force Academy, it's the same thing with West Point and Annapolis. The big difference is we have an aviation and aerospace mindset. We really want people to come here who are interested in research, or really have a desire to learn and create new technologies that we can use to fight the war. For now, I'd like to answer any questions. I know there's more slides there, but that's the general idea. All right, ma'am. Did you say the questions would be just coming through in the chat box?
Yes, sir. You should be able to access the chat box if you go to the control panel and you go to the right-hand side, should be the first option there, or you can press Alt-H and that will open up your chat box, or it should.
Okay. So I think I see this first one. When we serve our mandatory 4 years, do we serve during or after college? That's the first one, it looks like. So 2 things done. The first one is the minimum service requirement out of the Air Force Academy is going to be 5 years. That's for a non-rated career field. So anything in a support role, such as logistics, force support, maintenance, acquisitions, those jobs are going to be a 5-year service commitment. Rated career fields like pilot, remotely piloted aircraft operator, or combat systems officers will incur a greater period of commitment. But again, remember the mission here. This is the Air Force. We're here to develop pilots. That's why the commitment is longer for that and shorter for those jobs that are in the support role. And do we serve during or after college? So you do those after the academy. So you have to remember that the Air Force Academy is your undergraduate college experience. And because it's free, because your taxpayers are providing this opportunity, you do owe them that time upon graduation. The Air Force is starting to win my favor as to which I wish to join. That's awesome. We're the only branch of service with F-22 unmatched air superiority stealth fighter. Can we commission into another service from the academy? Yes, you can. 2 classmates of mine that were in Squadron 38 with me, they didn't pass. Sorry, go back. They really wanted to fly. They came to the Air Force Academy because they knew they had the highest amount of pilot slots available, and they really wanted to fly. When they went and got their initial Class 1 flying physical, it turned out that their eyesight didn't meet accession standards to become a pilot in the Air Force, but the test showed that they did meet the requirements to become a pilot in the Navy. So our superintendent went to bat for them, and they ended up getting naval aviator slots in the Navy, and the 2 of them are now at Pensacola waiting to start their pilot training over there. How many graduates were selected for Space Force this year? We commissioned 80 into the Space Force. So this is the first time ever this year. General Raymond came here and said a few remarks about it, but essentially these are the trailblazers coming out of the class of 2020 directly into the Space Force. And what we're looking at right now into the future is we want to have about 70% of the class going into the Air Force and 30% of the class going into the Space Force. How long is the Air Force Academy's wrestling season, and how competitive are its weight classes, assuming it is Division I? So the Air Force Academy's wrestling team is at the highest tier. It's very competitive. They compete in the Big 12 conference. The weight classes are extremely competitive. You can look up wrestling on Go Air Force Falcons. Most of the people that are on the team were multiple-time high school state champion. It is Division I. Yes, to answer that question. If I am prone to bronchitis, will it hurt my chance of getting in? So again, this is a question for a physician, a DOD-MERB specialist, the person who completes your medical examination to be admitted to the academy. He'll review your records and he will deem whether or not you're able to go and become a cadet. Again, so just save that question for the physician. Yes, we do have a pre-med program similar to the Naval Academy. We have about 15 to 20 each year that go to medical school. Again, it's the same process. They're either biology, chemistry. Actually, that's not true. We had one who was an English major, but she took additional classes to fulfill the pre-med requirement. So she was actually an English major on her diploma, but she's currently at a Uniformed Services University Medical School. So she ended up actually getting a medical slot for doing English and then meeting the prerequisites and doing well on the MCAT. Would a severe injury that I have fully recovered from affect my chances? Again, this one is for a physician and someone who's qualified in DODMER to tell you. If you complete the first 2 years of college while in high school, do you have to be in for the whole 3 years? Yeah, so again, this is not just an academic institution. The Air Force Academy exists to develop leaders of character to lead the United States Air and Space Force. So it takes 4 years to go through the curriculum of basic training, dual year recognition, commitment. There's multiple steps along the way in this formal training program that you have to have about 4 years to get through. No matter how many credits you might have coming into the academy, there's things outside of academics that have to be done along a certain timeline. Yes, you do have to be in for the whole 4 years, and sometimes it could be longer depending on if you're selected for the prep school. If admitted to the prep school, when does the academic year start, factoring in COVID for the class of 2025? So again, start dates are usually pushed out later, around April, May timeframe. So that'll come out in 2021, April, May. They have pretty good idea of what COVID's going to look like. I don't think there's going to be much impact next year timeline wise because, they have so many logistical factors in place to compensate for COVID. I think they're going to do a really great job next year with meeting timelines. While serving in the Air Force, can you continue your studies in another college? While serving in the big Air Force, yes, you can. There's different opportunities, military tuition assistance, that sort of thing that can allow you to continue accelerating your academic skills. But while you're at the academy, your sole focus, your academics will come from the Air Force Academy itself. You cannot be enrolled as a cadet at the academy and be taking classes at a different institution. The Air Force Academy is what we call an all-inclusive program. So everything that you'll need is given to you once you show up on I-Day. What was your favorite experience while at USAFA? So my favorite experience at the Air Force Academy was also the experience that motivated me to become a pilot in the Air Force. And that was the summer after my freshman year. I was honored to shadow F-15Cs in Oregon. I did something called sandbagging, which is essentially you hang around for a week over there, and whenever they have an open seat in the back, you just hop in. They train you up. They teach you how to use the oxygen systems, how to do your G-straining maneuver, that sort of thing. And then you ride in the back and you learn as much as you can, spend time with the pilots, that sort of thing. So the first experience I had sitting in the back seat of a fully aerobatic combat fighter was the best experience I've ever had, probably in my life, because it gave me true direction on where I wanted to go and what my goals were for the remainder of my time as a cadet. How would getting my doctoral degree work coming from the academy? So the academy is only an undergraduate institution. Can you see me? I'm sorry, that cut off.
We can see you.
Okay, this is only an undergraduate institution, so you cannot get a master's or higher from there. This is only to receive your bachelor's of science. That being said, the Air Force, after you've graduated from the academy, provides plenty of opportunities for their service members to pursue higher education. Along the lines of graduating high school with 2 years of college education, can you continue with your master's during the 4 years of academics? So no, again, you cannot get a master's from the academy because it's only an undergraduate institution. That being said, the coursework that you did do with your 2 years of college education can maybe help to validate a few of the core requirement classes, such as calculus, physics, chemistry, that sort of thing. Do we get to choose our mandatory sport, or is it chosen for us? So I'm assuming this is coming from an intramural or club perspective. You're able to choose. You can do whatever sport you want to do as long as it's available. If you want to become a lawyer and pursue that at the academy, how does that work? So it's the same way it would work if somebody wanted to go to medical school. There are certain programs we have set up at the academy for those interested in becoming what we call a JAG. And you essentially would just express to your commanding officer, hey sir, hey ma'am, I would like to go become a lawyer in the Air Force. And they'll point you in the right directions and get you in touch with the right people so that you have the information to know what steps to take to become a JAG in the Air Force. Can we study abroad while serving? Yes, you can study abroad while being a cadet at the Air Force Academy. You can do 3 weeks over the summer to some country overseas. You could do a whole semester, your junior or senior year, to another country, or you could just do even a week over your spring break. My roommate at the academy took a full advantage of this study abroad opportunity. He spent 1 week in Uganda, and then he spent 1 semester actually studying in Spain. So, there's plenty of opportunities to study abroad. And then while serving, there's plenty of opportunities as an officer to serve as an exchange liaison or air attaché officer, that sort of thing.
All right, Lieutenant Garcia, thank you so much for taking the time today. That will conclude our question and answer portion of your presentation. We will now go into the United States Coast Guard Academy, and we will be joined by Lieutenant Jacob Brown. Again, Lieutenant Garcia, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate having you represent the Air Force Academy today. Lieutenant Brown, I will go ahead and unmute you. Just give me 1 moment, and then we will begin your portion of the presentation. Let me pull up your slides, and you're all set to go.
Awesome, fantastic. So thank you again, Congressman Webster. Thank you again, Natasha, for putting this on, and thank you again to everybody that's taking part in this event. It's definitely something that makes my day every single time I get the chance to do one of these, and so I'm excited, ready to roll through these, and hopefully it can really feed you all to really look towards the Coast Guard Academy as your #1 spot here. So just to go ahead and kick things off, as you see there is the beautiful United States Coast Guard Academy located in New London, Connecticut. Next slide, please. So, alrighty, so, things that you may be interested in as well as surely your parents are. Well, where is CGA stand amongst the big dogs, if you would? And so, you're looking at the #1 top public school in the regional College North, looking at the 11 best undergraduate engineering program by U.S. News and World Report, and you're looking at top 25 public colleges as well as one of the best in the nation by the Princeton Review. Next slide, please. So to give a little bit of background on myself. So again, I'm Lieutenant Junior Grade Jacob Brown, and I'm actually the Southeast Admissions Officer. And so right there, you have my contact. There with my email as well as my direct phone number as well. So feel free at any point in time, day, night, weekend, weekday, to give me a call. This is what I'm here to do. And it, like I said earlier, it makes my day talking to everyone and just feeling that interest and really telling them all the great things that the Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Academy have to offer. So to give a little background on myself, I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia. As far as education goes, at the Coast Guard Academy, as a class of 2018 graduate, for just over 2 years now at this point, and I majored in government. Played football there, as you can see on the left, and then with regards to some of the clubs I participated in, a lot of the diversity clubs, a lot of the other athletic clubs as well. We have our Genesis, our Asian Pacific American Club as well, the company of. With regards to first assignment, so upon graduation, I had the unique and wonderful opportunity to head out to the fleet, as we call it. And so what I did there is I went to the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Laguerre, 270-foot medium endurance cutter, in which we went out and we did the mission. We did what you see in the commercials, what you saw in the videos with the personnel hopping on top of submarines and beating it down so the guys come out of the inside, and we're grabbing cocaine, we're saving, picking people up out of the water, we're putting vessels that are on fire out and making sure that everybody is safe and sound. And so on that boat, I was the command control communications and intelligence officer, and then I was also the first lieutenant. And then now for the next 3 years, I just reported to the Coast Guard Academy, got to come back home to my alma mater and do recruiting for the next 3 years. Next slide there, please. And so, okay, tell me more about the Coast Guard Academy and, you know, what is even the Coast Guard? And so Coast Guard is very unique. While, you know, we are a uniformed service, we also are not a part of the Department of Defense. And so we actually fall under the Department of Homeland Security. And so when you look at our 11 statutory missions, you have a port, waterway, coastal security, a drug addiction, migrant addiction, defense readiness, law enforcement, marine safety, search and rescue, aids and navigation, liver and marine resources, marine environmental protection, as well as ICE operations. And so you can get everything that you want to get in the Coast Guard, and that's something that is definitely unique about our service. If you want to be out and you want to do the tough mission and you want to, you know, have your guns on your body or on your person, you can go out and do that. If you'd rather be out on the water and help both the Coast Guard, Navy, and recreational vessels know where to go by placing those red and green buoys out, you can do that. And if you want to make sure that as people are starting to take those explorations up to the Antarctic and getting to see the other unexplored areas of the world due to, you know, frequently having ice, we're working on that too. So we do that as well. So that's one thing that I love about the Coast Guard is that we're jack of all trades for sure. Next slide, please. And so following up on there, with regards to my first assignment there, so on the left, you know, you have the stern of the ship there, which is also called the back of, you know, it's the back of the ship, and that's the mighty Laguerre. She was beautiful. She served me very well over the course of my 2 years. Had the chance to see and do some amazing things there on that vessel. And on the right there, unmute.
I'm sorry, Lieutenant Brown, you did cut out for just a second there. You might want to backtrack a few sentences, but it should be set to go.
Yes, okay. And then, Natasha, how do I sound? Do I sound good, or am I a little muffled?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so, yep, going back, the vessel on the left there, that's the mighty Laguerre that I had the chance to serve on for 2 years and had an excellent time. Got to do a lot of missions, got to do a lot of things out there, whether it was law enforcement, defense readiness, doing operations with the Navy, or, you know, your everyday search and rescue, responding to individuals that were in peril. Next slide, please. So, alrighty, let's shift over here to the Coast Guard Academy. Next slide, please. So a couple pictures of during my time while I was at the academy. As you see that in the top left, I was having the time of my life clearly, and that was actually swab summer. And so swab summer, of course, is our indoctrination time when you come in for your freshman year, as some of the other service academies called plebe year. And that's when you learn what your service is. We learned what the Coast Guard was. We're getting yelled at. We're doing the training. We're out there getting it in every day. On the bottom left there, of course, the thing that, you know, gave me peace of mind at night is football. And so you see another person to my right there, and you may be able to make out the words Army. That's actually my older brother, who was a 2011 grad from West Point. And so a lot of love there for the brothers over there at West Point and everything that they do, and brothers in the Army as well. And on the top right there, you'll see myself with our former superintendent, Amarin Doan. And I had the unique opportunity to be the regimental executive officer, which was phenomenal, as I got to really see what makes the Corps of Cadets work and run, and really embrace the opportunity to not only, you know, bond with my own classmates, but with the entire school as well. So looking at the Corps of Cadets, one thing that may be the shocker there is that you see we only have about just over 1,000 enrolled, whereas the other service academies may have 1,000 per class. We keep it nice and tight there at the Coast Guard Academy. We really bring home that home feeling when you're there. But although we do only have around just over 200 per class, we have tons of representation, be it other countries as well as every state within the Corps. And so to look at some of the other numbers as far as diversity goes, you know, we have a lot of females, we have a lot of minority students as well. And to give just a few ballpark numbers there with regards to GPAs and SATs, you're looking at, you know, the 3.8 being the average for the last class that came in, as well as just over that 650 range for the math SAT. And some of the benefits there, as you're looking at the Coast Guard Academy, you know, we're highly selective. However, on the back end there, you know, it's with good reason. And so while we may be selective, it's for good reason. You work hard, and so we pick you. And once you graduate, you'll have, you know, the opportunity of a lifetime as you go out, and you have tons of opportunities to do great things out in the fleet, whether you want to go to flight school, whether you want to be on a ship, or whether you want to do cyber, or tons of other options as well. One thing that is unique about our service is that we do not require congressional nomination at our academy. And so that's one thing of major note as well. So looking at academic majors. So we, as well as the other service academies, are also a major STEM focus, although I did major in government again. So we're looking at your civil engineering, your electrical engineering, your cyber, your mechanical engineering, naval architecture, marine engineering, operations, research, computer analysis, marine environmental science, management, and of course, last but not least, the government major there. And then shifting over to the wonderful athletics there, the Coast Guard Academy. That there is Cadet Memorial Field, actually was just repainted there. One of the most beautiful stadiums by far in all the country, especially at the D3 level. So breaking down all the athletics there at the Coast Guard Academy, you will have to play some form of a sport. We actually have 26 varsity sports. And so, you know, shifted from women to men, you know, you have your basketball, your football, your crew, your lacrosse, your rowing, and then you have your club sports such as boxing, ice hockey, and rugby and water polo. And one unique thing that has been gaining a lot of popularity actually at the Coast Guard Academy has been our sailing and our rifle and pistol teams. We recently had quite a few individuals that are working towards actually being on the Olympic teams. I have a very good friend that graduated a year before me. She's actually down in Florida working with our U.S. sailing team right now as they're preparing to really work and get ready for Olympics when the time comes. So that's exciting. And then we also had quite a few individuals this past year shoot really well, and they went to the world trials as well for shooting and pistol. Shift over to cadet activities. And so one thing that is great about, you know, not only all the other academies, but the Coast Guard Academy in specific, is the fact that there's always going to be something to do. We have well over 15 clubs, and if you can't find something that you're interested in or that you want to do, great news for you. You can make your own club. Only thing that you have to do is to find what we call a sponsor. And that's essentially just someone that'll oversee the club and make sure, you know, that nothing inappropriate has happened or that everybody's being managed and safe and sound. But it's definitely very, very exciting in that, you know, you're there, you're in your own club if you want to have your own club, or you can join some of the clubs that have lasted years and years and years, and you get the chance to meet with alumni that also were in that same club and talk about similar experiences, even though you're separated by many years apart. So greetings from the beautiful Chase Hall. So for this very, very small fee of a few sleepless nights, a couple push-ups, and a little bit of hard work, you can earn your right to stay at the beautiful Chase Hall Barracks. And so there you have one of our well-equipped rooms there. As you see, you have that beautiful rack there, a little bit of drawer space, and a little bit of extra space there to put some pictures of mom and dad up as well. So one unique thing that's pretty awesome about the Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Academy is that we are the ascension source for Coast Guard officers. And so whereas you may go to different ROTCs and perform different other programs, and you know, you may receive that final commission there from a different place, every officer in the United States Coast Guard has been to New London, Connecticut, and they've been to the Coast Guard Academy at one point or another for their specific program. So that's something that across the fleet, you'll always be able to bond about with another Coast Guard officer. And so the typical cadet day, you're looking at, waking up at 10 o'clock or 6 o'clock, excuse me, and you're, lights out by 2200 or 10 o'clock p.m. And so during the day, it looks pretty similar to a lot of the other service academies. You're going to classes, and then in the afternoon there, you have your extracurricular times where you're playing your sports, you're doing your intramural clubs as well. For your summers, probably the best part of the Service Academy and the Coast Guard Academy. As a sophomore, you're going out on the mighty tall ship Eagle. If you're a fan of Pirates of the Caribbean, you will definitely love Eagle. Is that experience all day and all night. You're sailing out there, the beautiful tall ship, and you're getting to see things that you would never imagine. Unfortunately, I only had the chance to go to the Bahamas and through the Bermuda Triangle, but I've had other friends that got to go to Belgium, France, go to Germany, go to Ireland, and do all types of awesome things. And then as well as a junior, you have the chance to go out and do what we call Cat P, and you go to an aviation training unit where you can go out and actually fly. So as a junior, I had the chance to fly a 144 Casa Ocean Century. Shout out to the Air Force guys. He may know a little bit more about that than I do, but had the chance to fly that, and it was pretty awesome. They gave me the complete control, and then flying is something that's pretty sweet. And although it's not my career path, I definitely, have much respect for it. And then in my senior year, I got to go out and do the mission. I got to be on a ship, and I did a whole patrol in which we got tons and tons of kilos of cocaine and had major drug busts, and we actually saved over 10 lives as well. And so to the good part, the application requirements. So our applications are 100% online. We do require letters of recommendation from your guidance counselor, your English instructor, and your math instructor. And we'll be looking for your official high school transcript as well as your SAT and ACT scores as you proceed through the application. For our physical fitness evaluation, we actually do a 1.5 mile run, cadence push-ups, and then we'll also do sit-ups as well. And those are the 3 things that make that test level. For personal statements, what should you say? Which point do you want to get across? We want to see the genuine you. We want to see your sincere side. We want to see what makes you, you. Across the board, there are going to be good scores. There are going to be good SAT scores. There are going to be good GPAs. But what makes you, you, and what separates you from individuals? You have to be ready to tell your story. And then additionally there, just some side notes. You have to be 17 to 22 years of age and single with no dependents or debt. And then additionally there, the fact that you play sports is great. But additionally, we also really value our artsy individuals as well, if you would. And so we also do music reviews as well. Important dates. So we're looking at, for our October 15th date is the early action. And it's important, early action does not bind you to the Coast Guard Academy. However, if you do apply early action, you will receive that good news right before Christmas, which would be something to definitely celebrate. If you're not so sure about where you want to do or where you stand, that's fine. That's completely fine. And so you have a little bit extra time. You can have up to January 15th for that application for regular decision, and then you'll be looking to receive a response back from us in April. And with that, I look forward to answering any questions anybody has. I appreciate you taking the time to hear me out here and to learn a little bit about not only the Coast Guard Academy, but all the service academies as well. All right, so shift over to the questions there. What did you do to earn the bullhorns on the Laguerre? And so the bullhorns is, you learn that through being the most senior junior officer on board. So it's a little bit of a joke there. You're a senior, but you're junior. And so I was the highest ranking junior officer. And basically you're the one that when the next wave of junior officers come after graduating from the academy or from OCS or Officer Candidate School, you're the one that they should be going to speak with and learn lessons from. It's definitely a unique honor and something that I was very proud of in the moment, to be able to guide my shipmates and teach them the good ropes. What percentage of graduates opt for flight school? So usually looking at a class size about just over 200, about 220 to 230, and about 10% or so typically get flight school upon graduation. So you're looking about 23 or so, 25, maybe 30 getting flight school. But one thing that is very unique and also something that's very inspiring is that once you graduate from the academy, just because you didn't get flight school, that's okay. If what you really want to do is you want to fly, then you will have that opportunity. You just have to go out and you have to perform. And so I have tons of classmates that are currently in flight school right now in Pensacola with graduates from the Naval Academy, graduates from the Air Force Academy, and graduates from West Point, as they all attend the same flight school in the beginning there down in Pensacola. And so you have that chance to go down there and, you know, continue to pursue your dream. And just because you don't get it at the Coast Guard Academy doesn't mean that, you know, that was your one shot. There are tons and tons of opportunities. I'm actually not too aware of any individuals that, other than being medically disqualified, wanted to get flight school and never ended up getting a chance to go. So that's definitely something that's positive. If you graduate high school in 2022, when should you start the application process? And so you should be looking to start that process soon. Actually, you can start today. Feel free to give my email and my phone number, and we can start chatting today. I'm going to be around till 2023, so just in time for you to report to CGA. So you can start that conversation today, and we will work and talk, and I can talk to you one-on-one, talk with your parents, and we can all get to know each other and really help you out. As you get into your junior year, you really get to delve into the application or the idea of the application there and what's going to be needed. We have our summer program, which is called AIM, the Academy Introduction Mission, and you have the chance to come to the academy and see what it'd be like to be a cadet. You get to experience just a little bit of a taste of SWAP summer with a little bit, maybe a little bit of yelling, a couple push-ups, but that's not important. You get to run through some of the academics, you get to meet some of the athletic coaches, and good news is, regardless of whether or not we are, you know, confined a little bit or restricted by COVID, we actually did a virtual session this past summer, and it was excellent. And so even if COVID remains in effect, we will have that virtual session ready for you all as well. What percentage of graduates are offered a chance to go to graduate school? So upon graduation, graduate school is certainly an option, and it just depends on when you feel comfortable and ready to go. I had classmates that are currently in grad school right now for engineering and naval science and marine science as well. And I have other classmates that said they wanted to wait a little bit. I'm personally in school right now doing my master's for political science in addition to working at the Coast Guard Academy. And so you have tons of chances. They have what are called all coast messages, which are messages that are essentially released throughout the year that expound on the opportunities that you have to pursue the grad school that you want to pursue. And so as they come out, you just have the opportunity to read over them, and you decide personally, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to pursue, and you let your command know, and then they will endorse you.
All right, well, if we don't have any other questions from students, we will go ahead and move on to the United States Merchant Marine Academy with Mr. David Pope. Lieutenant Brown, thank you so much for taking the time today to join us in our virtual Academy Day event. We appreciate all the information that you shared with our students, and we look forward to hearing from you again in the future. Mr. Pope, if you are available, we'll go ahead and unmute you and have you begin your presentation about the United States Merchant Marine Academy.
Okay, let me click this off. First of all, thanks for inviting me to this remote session. My name is David Pope, and I am worked for many years assisting people with appointments and nominations to the Merchant Marine Academy. I attended the Merchant Marine Academy, graduating in 1967, and spent many years thereafter at sea in the Merchant Marine and the Navy. And for many years after that, have been practicing maritime law here in Tampa. I'm available to assist anyone that is interested in attending the Merchant Marine Academy with the nomination and appointment process. I'm assuming that you have earlier received the information about the process with Congressman Webster about what you need to do to satisfy those requirements. And there is a separate process, like all the academies except Coast Guard, to obtain admission to the academy. So there's, with Merchant Marine Academy, Naval Academy, West Point, Air Force Academy, there's a two-track process with the congressman or senator, and then with the academy itself. And they are run on, in effect, on parallel tracks. So the sooner you start, particularly if you are already a junior in high school, the better. I'm going to kind of speak a little bit about the similarities and also what I think are the important differences between the Merchant Marine Academy and the other service academies. Number one, the other service academies are somewhat larger. West Point, Annapolis, and the Air Force Academy are, you know, a student admitting class of between 1,000 and 1,400, where the Coast Guard Academy and the Merchant Marine Academy, the admitting class is somewhere usually between 250 and 300. So the overall folks at school or at the academy at any one time at Coast Guard and Merchant Marine are somewhere between 900 and 1,000. And at the others between, you know, 3,500 or 4,000. So it's a much smaller and more focused environment. I will also advise that all of the academies are really, in effect, STEM oriented: science, technology, engineering, and math. With STEM orientation, it is very important as potential applicants to these schools that you focus on STEM courses in your high school curriculum or preparatory curriculum, particularly math, science, emphasis on physics. Most of the degrees you'll get, even if they are not directly STEM degrees at the other academies, will require some basic participation in STEM courses. At the Merchant Marine Academy and Coast Guard, both, the education is really very much STEM oriented. Most of the people that attend are going to attend or obtain degrees of one type or another in engineering, or in our case, marine transportation and nautical science, if you're a deck officer. The programs at the Merchant Marine Academy are basically focused on marine engineering, and there are 3 or 4 majors in marine engineering, and those are for engineering officers and later engineering careers. The other emphasis is on nautical science. That's for the deck officers, and marine transportation for people that would be involved in logistics of marine transportation, the movement of goods in maritime commerce. So those are the 2 primary areas of education available at the Merchant Marine Academy. There are no English degrees, language degrees, things like that. It is strictly focused on maritime commerce, maritime activity, and marine engineering, for want of a better term. I attended as a marine engineer, and thereafter sailed at least 5 years, probably 6, as an engineer on various merchant ships. And I hope, if you're interested in the Merchant Marine Academy, that that is something that would be of interest to you, because one of the interesting differences between the Merchant Marine Academy and the other service academies is that one of the years you are enrolled at the Merchant Marine Academy is spent at what we call a sea year. That now is composed of 2 6-month periods in which the midshipmen serve what usually 1 deck and 1 engine midshipmen are assigned to a US flag or a USNS type vessel to serve as deck and engine midshipman and learn from the hawse pipe up what going to sea on a merchant ship is about in terms of your responsibilities as a deck officer and your responsibilities as an engineering officer. Those two sea year segments are spaced out on your sophomore year, your third year, and your junior year, your second class year. When I went, it was all done at once. I was out the whole sophomore year. I was gone 11 months. And I won't bore you with all the places that I was able to go to as a pretty young kid from South Florida to see the world. And it literally was seeing the world. We went to the Mediterranean on one voyage, the Far East on another one, Northern Europe on the third one, and West Africa and South Africa on the fourth one. So that's what I did for 1 year as a midshipman at the Merchant Marine Academy, plus learning the ins and outs and hopefully how to properly function as an engineering officer on a US flag merchant ship. One of the things I wanted you to be aware of if you attend the Merchant Marine Academy, you will be expected to and will receive 3 things. Number 1 is a Bachelor of Science degree in either marine transportation, nautical science, or marine engineering discipline. There are several. The second thing you will receive is a license from the Coast Guard as either a third officer, which would be the deck officer program, or as a third engineer, which would be the engineering program. The reason you must, another reason besides learning your trade, you must go to sea for this year as part of the academy curriculum is that the Coast Guard requires anybody sitting for a license as a deck or engineering officer to have at least 270 days of sea time before you're eligible for the license. So the sea year serves 2 purposes. Learn your trade and see if this is what you really want to do. And second of all, to be eligible for the license, which I will in advance assure you, if you've gotten through the Merchant Marine Academy, you should be able to successfully pass the license exam for deck or engine officer. But I said there was a third thing, and that is to be commissioned as an officer in one of the uniformed services. Unlike the other academies, in the Merchant Marine Academy, you are eligible for a commission in the Navy, a commission in the Army, a commission in the Air Force, a commission in the Coast Guard, a commission in the Marine Corps, and interestingly enough, a commission as a deck or engine officer in NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. Again, you would be a deck or engine officer in NOAA, probably serving on one of their oceanographic or weather research type vessels. You're not a marine scientist. Kings Point doesn't offer that type of training. Other places do, but you would be a licensed officer in NOAA and would serve on their vessels in whatever the program is you went through at Kings Point, deck or engine. So that's kind of a unique quality of Kings Point, to be able to take a commission in any of the services. I took mine in the Navy. I did serve time on Navy ships and did serve active and reserve time thereafter for many years. So it is a component, 3 things: commission, bachelor's degree, and license. When they say, or the program that ordinarily would accompany this, the video would show you that Kings Point is the place that offers you the widest variety of opportunity. By that opportunity, I mean you have the opportunity to work in civilian ships, in Navy or government ships, in the maritime industry, and potentially in a collateral area like NOAA. people from Kings Point routinely apply for and to get accepted into the Navy Nuclear Power School, which primarily obviously would be for engineers, and into flight school. I will note that one of the Top Gun guys that's now running for Congress, I believe, in Arizona, is a Merchant Marine Academy graduate. Actually, somewhat unusual. He's also the one that has the longest time as an astronaut in space. Doesn't seem likely that somebody that went to sea in the Merchant Marine would be the longest serving or longest time in space as an astronaut, but he was, and still is. So those are the programs that are available at Kings Point. I would suggest that as you're shown the interest to attend this virtual seminar, that you probably ought to consider applying to all the academies of interest to you and seek the appointment or nomination, and then the appointment. Other than that Coast Guard Academy, which is of course a direct appointment and does not need a congressional nomination. Nonetheless, the requirements of the education you're going to experience are the same. In terms of physical requirements, Kings Point has the same Department of Defense requirements that all the academies have in order for you to be eligible to receive a commission as an officer in one of the services. In terms of what's a showstopper for the Merchant Marine Academy, I will suggest to you that being colorblind may or may not be a waivable offense. It would probably not be a good idea for somebody that is colorblind to be a deck officer in the Merchant Marine and unable to distinguish red lights from green lights or other colored amber lights or whatever the other ones are that are out upon the water. So you might want to make sure that you, as part of your DoD test, you will be administered a color blindness test. But if you already know that you have some issues in that area, you might consult your ophthalmic physician to see if there's anything that's really of concern there. In terms of sports at the academy, it is just like, by the way, one of our primary opponents in our Division III athletics, as you might guess, is the Coast Guard Academy. And there is usually a pretty spirited, it's not, I won't say it's the equivalent of the Army-Navy game, but it is our equivalent of the Army-Navy game, and that is Coast Guard and Merchant Marine Academy. Their final game of the season, football, is always conducted at one or the other of the academies. And it results in something called the Superintendent's Cup, which I won't go into, but it's related to the departments in which the academies function. Those are the basics of the Merchant Marine Academy. I would suggest to you that as part of your curriculum, you again, I can't strongly emphasize enough, that you focus on and do well in the math and science curricula, because unlike the other academies, you are not going to have 4 years of classroom schooling to obtain your bachelor's degree. At Kings Point, you are going to get 3 years of schooling because of the C year. Therefore, the hours that you're going to take are going to be somewhat more than you would ordinarily take even at the other service academies. So therefore, being prepared by your high school to deal with what are going to be STEM topics is always a good thing to be, and it will help you successfully master what you need to do to get those 3 things upon graduation from Kings Point. I see there is a question down here, and if this little button works. Oh, it says you have about 5 minutes remaining and we can go into questions. So if there are questions, please proceed and let me know. I'm available here in Tampa. I see a question. Okay, the question is, how rare is it for a US MMA graduate to go to flight school? What would they major in? Engineering, I assume. Okay, it is not that rare for an academy graduate to go. First of all, obviously you would accept a Navy or Marine Corps or Coast Guard commission upon graduation. That would be the first thing. Then you would proceed through the Navy flight school, and the Marine Corps also participates, and the Coast Guard Academy aviators go through the same, in effect, Navy flight school. I would say that probably the number of slots allotted to Merchant Marine Academy graduates is proportional, and I would think if you are interested in flight school, it would be available to you probably on at least 50% of the people that apply would get it. What you would qualify for would be up to the needs of the Navy, the Coast Guard, and the Marine Corps in terms of the type of aircraft and type, whether it be helicopter, fixed wing, or something like that. But that would be the avenue you'd pursue, is through the commission into the service, and then as a service member through the flight school with most likely at Pensacola, which is where I think Navy primary flight school is for all the seagoing services anyway. By that includes the Marine Corps. So I would agree the major would likely be engineering, but it doesn't have to be. You could be a deck officer and certainly qualify for the commission that you want, or the service commission you want, and it would probably be just as proficient for you to go into flight school with a degree in nautical science or marine transportation and management, something like that. So hopefully that would help answer that question. Let's see here. If there are any other questions, please put them in now, but I'm available to assist in the initial application to the Academy. I hope you've taken notes on what you need to do for the Congressman's nomination. So with that said, I will stand by. I will send an email to the Congressman's office after this presentation. We'll have all my contact information, and you can certainly contact me. I have all the admission materials that you might need, or the informational packets you might need, and all you have to do is get a hold of me by email and I'll send them to you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Pope, it looks like we're all done with questions there. I want to thank you for taking the time today to participate in our virtual Academy Day. We really appreciate you setting aside the time to provide students with such informative information. I also want to again thank everybody who attended our event today and thank all of our participants. Again, we want to thank Charles Cook, Lucas Dahl, and William Murray with the United States Military Academy. We want to thank Stephen Swift, Sophie Lakis, and Brian Donovan with United States Naval Academy. We also would like to thank Santiago Garcia with the United States Air Force Academy, and of course, last but not least, David Pope representing the United States Merchant Marine Academy. Again, we sincerely appreciate everybody taking the time to participate and inform students throughout our district of the different lifestyles and application processes of each of these wonderful academies. For those students who attended, I want to remind everybody that you do have my email address and our phone number here with Congressman Webster's office. If you have any questions concerning our nomination process or the application process for any of these 5 academies, please do not hesitate to contact me. As I stated in the beginning, my role here in Congressman Webster's office is to assist you and guide you through the nomination process, as well as ensuring that you have resources and contacts when going through the admission process with your academy of choice. Following this meeting, we will be reaching out with the contact information for many of the people who participated today. You'll receive the information for Captain Swift and Mr. Donovan, as well as Mr. Brown, Mr. Garcia, Mr. Cook, and Mr. Murray, as well as Mr. Pope. Moving forward, if you have any other questions or you have questions that arise that were not answered throughout the meeting today, again, please feel free to contact us. We are here to be a resource to you, so don't hesitate. Thank you all again for participating, and we will end the call there.